Hello there, welcome to another episode of Inside Out Alignment, your platform for self discovery and creativity. It's a beautiful journey when we have it in this world and actually fall in love or come in contact with that power that breathes us and finally find that passion, that which we are passionate about, or find our calling and fulfilling the purpose for which we are here because each and every one of us being unique and being sent here for a purpose. And when we are able to connect to that, life becomes even more fulfilling and joyful. So today we are blessed to have a guest who have found that, and she is living her purpose. It's an honor for me to have Laura Guide was here with us. And I would say that I've known her just for some few weeks, but her energy and the way she delivers comes from her heart. So, Laura, thank you so much for accepting this invitation, for being here with us. Thank you for accepting and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. So, Laura is a registered nurse, medium, intuitive energy healer, and writer. Laura's spiritual journey truly began over 20 years ago. It started with a dream visitation from Jesus asking her to spread his word. Having been brought up in both the Christian and Jewish faith, she struggled to understand why her and what he meant by this. And I know a couple of us go through this like, what does this mean? Yeah. So a couple of years later, her grandmother passed from cancer. The same night of her passing, she visited Laura in a dream saying she was all better. Her grandmother's illness and passing ignited the flame inside her to have a profession in the medical field. It also was the start of dream visitations of other friends and family members who had passed over the years, including a dream where she met her spiritual guide, Jason. Fast forward to the present, Laura's spiritual journey has taken off. With the found ability to channel messages of love and wisdom from soul meetings and past loved ones and an aptitude for energy healing, she has been able to lovingly transform her way of life. She's now ready to share the message she was asked to spread all those years ago, the message of love. Isn't that beautiful? I love
I think
this.
so. Thank you. Thank you.
So, how was it like to get that message from
Mm,
Jesus? How did
yeah,
you
that
feel?
was,
How was the voice?
yeah.
I'm just so excited to learn it. Yeah, to know.
Yeah, it was such an interesting dream, and obviously very real, because even to this day I still remember it because it happened when I was a teenager. And gosh, I feel like nothing was different in my life. I just nothing stood out from anything going on in my life, other than I think at the time um we were attending a Korean church with my mom. My dad's Jewish, so we kind of would
Mm-hmm.
go back and forth between going to church and synagogue. Well, at the time we were at the point in our lives where we were attending a Korean church. And gosh, you know what, it just I was dreaming, and then all of a sudden, in my dream, Jesus walks over to me. He's sort of on the arm of a grayed out figure who I could tell was a man based on the arm. I could only see his arm, but Jesus came to me in color, and he he walked. Well, he's kind of more like he floated over to me, and just asked me simply, will you spread my word? That was it. And at the time I was kind of like, well, so I responded to him. Even though a million thoughts were going on in my head in my dream, I responded to him, I will try. That's what I said to Jesus, I'll try. But he was satisfied with that, because then he went away and that was it. But I remember thinking, like, gosh, like, how am I going to do this? To me, spreading his word meant evangelizing, or, it meant, I don't know, door to door, like whatever it was. But for me, it's really hard to I don't know, share or quote unquote sell what I don't really feel full-heartedly or wholeheartedly myself. So that part was difficult. So years and years went by, and I, sort of started this spiritual journey, and that dream still kept coming back to me, spreading his word. And now I'm thinking, well, spirituality feels good to me, feels really good to me. How in the world does Jesus, who at the time to me sort of only was equated to Christianity, how did he fit into this? I still didn't know, but that dream kept coming back to me because I knew in some way I was going to be spreading his word. I just didn't see how or what or when. And then I started practicing channel writing, and I just came up with the idea, well, what if I tried channeling Jesus? Like he's a spirit, right? He's a spirit. And that I was channel writing, I was channeling my guides, angels, past loved ones. Why not Jesus? So I did, and he came through and he told me that the word I'm to spread is the word of love. And it's that simple. It's that simple. And I wholeheartedly can do that. So that's sort of where I've taken this. And to me, as of right now, how that translates is, connecting people to the guidance of their soul teams, which would be like spirit guides, angels, ascended masters like Jesus, source, higher self, etc. And connecting the knowledge of everybody's team, the love from everybody's team through me, so that I can help spread the word of love that way, and just remind everybody how loved they are, and how so unalone they are. There's so much guidance on the other side, that each of us has. No matter what we believe in, we all have these soul teams that are with us to love us, communicate with us, support us, guide us. And part of my job is to remind people of that and to reconnect them to that knowledge that was forgotten when we came into this life. So as of right now, that's what I'm doing. That's sort of what it looks like. And I'm kind of doing it through different avenues, but taking it one step at a time, in a way that feels good, that I know I'm being guided to do. And that's what I'm doing, spreading the word of love.
Beautiful. So
Yeah.
how did you know that it was him?
Gosh, what a good question. A lot of what I have learned about this work is trust.
Mm-hmm.
I have set the intention out to connect with him. And I can see, I have clairvoyance. So I was able to envision him and see him. And um, and I also, with clairsentience and claircognizance, I knew and I felt that it was him. And that's all I needed to know to trust that it was coming from him.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So how do you like following maybe your intuition to get that message? Like that guide. How do you give your attention to that to know that this is the message I'm supposed to channel, or this is the message I'm supposed to, to bring to the people out maybe this week or maybe in a month or maybe in a webinar? How do you get to navigate through that and get that message clearly?
That is such a good question because it takes, yes, it is such a good question. Okay, so first of all, we all have intuition. And to
Sure.
me, intuition is sort of the communication of with it's like soul communication with
Sure.
our teams, or whoever. So we all have intuition. So it's just a matter of first of all, I think recognizing what it feels like when it's your intuition telling you to do or not do something.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have all had life experiences where we knew we shouldn't have done that, but we did it anyways. But that knowing we shouldn't have done that, that's that intuitive communication and guidance.
Mm-hmm.
The free will is what is us saying, but we did it anyways. That's our free will. So I feel like hindsight is 2020. So really, in in retrospect, it's a lot easier to perhaps see, ooh, okay, I could see where I probably shouldn't have done what I did, but I did it anyways. So that would be sort of not listening to your intuition, or just saying, gosh, you know what, this feels right. It's scary, but it feels right. So I'm going to do it. And then just like the excitement and the joy that comes with doing something like that. So for example, um, when I did my first summit online, my very first summit, I was very much at the beginning stages of this more, I would call this for me, a more advanced part of my spiritual journey. And a lot of it, I felt like I was just in the learning phases. I was learning to energy heal. I was learning to channel right. I was learning to connect with my teams and know what that felt like when we did so. So for me, that was I was at that stage. Well, then my dear friend Stephanie Zito, who you had on here before, she
Definitely.
was like, I think I'm going to host a summit and I want you in it, because she's one of my soul sisters. I consider her a soul sister because she helped me grow. We grew together
Mm-hmm.
in certain aspects. And
Yeah.
so she knew what I was learning and embarking on, and she wanted me to share. So she helped me take that step from a personal, private journey of what it is that I'm learning to, okay, it's time for me to now share what I've learned. And so that was very scary. It was a very scary jump to go from the safety and comfort of my own, you know, private, in my own room where I got to practice my channel writing or meditating or anything. It was my own private thing, to now, okay, I'm going to join the summit. I'm going to share with other people. But I knew I had to do it. I just knew it. I knew that everything that I was learning was not just for me to keep to myself. So I needed that push, and she
Mm-hmm.
provided that for me. So yes, it was, so sorry, my dog's barking.
It's okay.
So yes, it was scary. It was very scary. But at the same time, it felt right in my journey. So I did it. And after doing it, I felt so good. I couldn't wait to do it again. So that was confirmation for me that, okay, I did the right thing. That was the right choice. I'm on the right path. So I guess to go back to your question, a lot of it is a bit of maybe, looking back and seeing in hindsight how intuition, served you, and how, maybe we kind of ignore the intuitive red flags, to really kind of get an idea and a sense of what it feels like for future events. And what you'll, I feel like what will begin to happen is, as you listen to your intuition, all the doors start to open up, right? It's like, you feel really good. You feel so happy. Like life feels good. Like life feels like the way it's supposed to. It's not like you're swimming upstream, you're swimming with the current. So it's like life becomes, I want to say, almost easier, because we're going along the intuitive journey, like the journey that we were intended to, with the guidance and help of our team. So it's sort of like those are sort of those positive side effects that comes along with learning what your intuition feels like, sounds like, looks like, and then following that, even if it's scary, following that intuitive guidance. And for me, because I feel like a lot of my intuitive guidance comes from my team, and I feel that that's the same for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Meditation is really important to sort of, opens up something up in the mind space that allows us to, uh, focus our mind, so that we can open up a channel to the communication from our teams. And then we start to form like a bond with them, a relationship with them. Now, they're always there with us, regardless if we realize it or not.
Right.
But us realizing that they're there takes a little bit longer. So I feel like meditation would be number one if anybody wanted to start this journey of learning to listen more to their intuition, or even being curious to maybe learn who their team is made up of, who's in their team, who their spirit guides are, that sort of thing. Meditation would be number one, because it just gets the mind space ready to receive clearer communication with the team. And then as far as that goes, after that, you sort of build this trusting relationship. You start to realize, okay, I said yes to that. It was scary, but it felt good. And look, it opened up another door for me. So for example, for us, I said yes to the Feminine Frequency Festival where we met.
Definitely.
Right. And so then saying yes to that, opened up the door between you and I
Right.
communicating together.
Mhm.
Right. So it's like all these doors,
Doors
just life.
open.
Yeah. Like life just seems to work out for you. It's just how like it seems to work out. But anyways, it does start with trust. And it starts with, for me, it started with meditation. So I would highly recommend meditation for anybody. And just acknowledging, just trust is really the biggest thing, and just being open to receiving that guidance.
Beautiful. Yeah, I have one of my mentors. She puts it this way, like that voice of truth is only as loud as our willingness to listen to it.
I
Because most
love
of
that.
the time we are choked with everything from the outside, all the noise outside. So it's hard for us
Yeah.
to really pay attention to those really important, messages or that
Mm,
guide, as we walk this earth. Yeah. So
absolutely.
yeah. So when you you talk about your spiritual guide, Jason. So how did you come in contact with him and knowing that yes, this is the person who is going to guide me through this journey?
Yes, gosh, such a good question. And I imagine that a lot of people are probably wondering, how do I even know his name?
Mhm.
Yeah. So you know what? I so again, probably soon after, sometime I had probably a few years after I had that dream with Jesus,
Mhm.
I picked up some Sylvia Brown books. I can't remember how that started. I wish I could, but I don't remember how I picked up my first Sylvia Brown book and read it. But Sylvia Brown is, she was a spiritualist. She was a psychic who she's since passed, but she wrote many books, and I picked up the right book, I guess, one of her books, and it was one that talked about the other side. It talked about spirit guides. It talked about angels. It talked about Mother God, which that was a new concept for me too. It was always
Mhm.
just Father God. So just that there was a Mother God as well. Anyway, so she talked about spirit guides, and she mentioned something in there about asking to have them visit in your dreams. So at the time I tried that. I had before that never met my guide that I was aware of. And I just asked one evening, I probably before going to bed, that my spirit guide visit me in my dream. Well, it didn't happen that night. In fact, it probably took like a couple weeks. um I don't know, there's a little bit of a pattern with my guides. They like to wait a couple weeks from when I ask for something for when it delivers. It's happened a
Which is
couple times.
okay. Mhm.
Totally fine, absolutely, it is definitely okay. But it's good for people to know that
Mhm.
it's okay if it doesn't happen right away. It'll come. It almost happens when you don't expect it,
Pet.
and it
Yeah.
becomes more amazing that way.
It's
But
like you say it and then you let it go. You don't hold
exactly,
too much into it because it's like you're being
exactly,
anxious. It's like you know that
exactly.
you've asked, you're going to receive, but
Yep.
you're working by faith and not by sight. Yeah.
Yes, yes. You put it out in the universe, and then it's up to
Mhm.
them. You just let
Right.
it go.
Mm.
So one night, he came, I had a dream about him. And it's so interesting because uh I don't know why or how, but I somehow knew to ask him when I saw him in my dream if he was my spirit guide. I don't know how I knew to ask that, but I did. Maybe how he presented himself, I don't know. So I asked him, I asked him, "Are you my spirit guide?" It was such a simple and quick conversation. "Are you my spirit guide?" He said, "Yes." And then I just remembered to ask him his name. "What is your name?" He said, "Jason." I was so grateful that I remembered to ask his name in my dream. And that's how that came about. That's how I learned his name. Was I asked him in my dream. I feel like I got kind of lucky in that sense. And the reason why I feel like he's sort of my main guide,
Mm-hmm.
is because I met him first. I met him when at the younger age, and I've just sort of I feel like I had to meet him then to know that he was with me for all this time. And there's just been a lot that sort of occurred um, from then to now in my life. So I just feel like, he's just been around for all of it. I do have other guides as well. I've met another one in a dream um, also. And same conversation. Asked her if she was my guide. She said yes. Asked her her name. She told me. She said it was Lana, and that was it. so,
Beautiful.
so yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, when your grandmother visited you, how did it feel? And letting you know that
Mm,
she was, you know, that she was fine.
yeah, that was really interesting. I was also a teenager, but this was before I met Jason. This was before my spirit guide dream. After the Jesus dream, um, I believe so. But it was the timing of it is very significant. Um, we as a family, we lived in a different state from her and my grandfather at the time. And so as a family, when we found out she was diagnosed, it all happened very quickly. So we were able to drive out there. We were close enough to be able to drive. We drove out there and we got to see her in hospice. And we got to see her sort of say our goodbyes. She was not at all physically coherent. Um, so there wasn't a conversation or anything like that. But we got to say our goodbyes to her. And we were staying at her house with my grandfather. That's where we were staying while we were visiting. And the night that I had that dream, it was the night that after we visited her, that same night. And I was surrounded by other family from that side of the family. She walks in through the door and on the arm of my grandfather, who was still alive at the time. And she was radiant, radiant. She was wearing white. The light behind her was glowing white. It was her again. And not a shell of a person that I had just seen in hospice. And I said to her, I said, "Grandma," I said, "you're all better." And she said, "Yes, I am." That was it. That's all I can remember as far as the conversation went. And then if my timeline serves me right, I believe it was the next morning we found out that she had passed. So the timing of it is really significant because it was at least around the time that she would have passed. I do think it was that same night. Um, so that was really significant, and that also has stuck with me through many of this. And my grandmother, she's been very paramount in my spiritual journey. Surprisingly, I never would have thought that. But years later, she would visit me in my dreams several times. Until the last dream that I had of her a couple years ago, when she told me, she says, "You're not going to see me for a while because I'm moving up." I don't still quite know what that means, but she's right. I haven't dreamt about her um, in a while. But yeah, having that dream, it was really significant because it sort of became, she was the first person that was close to me that had passed. And so I didn't really have experiences of dream visitations of people who had passed until her. And then after that, other people in my life had passed. They had visited me in my dreams as well. And so that's how I knew and it wasn't people that were like family. It'd be like friends, like high school friends and stuff. So, some people will have dreams of people who are very close to them, but I was having dreams about um, people who maybe I hadn't seen since high school, but I know had passed, and things like that. So that was it was interesting. I took note of that. But going back to the dream about my grandmother, it was very significant, mostly around because of the timing and just because of the context of it, seeing her all better again, glowing, radiant, and her saying that she was. So very comforting.
Yeah, that's beautiful too. I think that was
Yeah.
her way of saying goodbye to you and letting you know that she is fine. You know, that
Hmm.
should be like the last image that you have of her,
Yes,
before she leaves. That it shouldn't be like, that person wasn't able to talk or with whom you couldn't really
absolutely.
communicate, but it was kind of like my daughter or my granddaughter, be in peace because I am in peace. I am fine. I'm good. And it was just like
Yep.
reassuring you, like, don't
Yes.
beat yourself up, don't feel like I'm suffering, but I am good. So
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love
Thank
that.
you. Yeah.
So you've also gone through some challenges, and one of them is in a relationship.
Mhm.
Could you kind of share that a little bit about that with us, and how when did you realize that you had to get out of it and you had to,
Yes.
just just leave?
Yes. Good question. Earlier in the podcast when I had mentioned, looking back on events that happened in our life that we were like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. That's my example. That's one of my examples.
Hmm.
That relationship, gosh, that was, I I feel like I was 19 when I met him, 19 when I met him. I was young, and life was going really well for me. It wasn't like I had any hardships. Life was going really well. I met him. He said the right things. He swept me off my feet. And I was just this young 19-year-old girl with these grandiose ideas of love and everything. And he gave me attention, and he was, to me, was good looking. And so it just, I was smitten. I really liked him. And things were fine, as far as the relationship goes. And then, it turned into like, all of a sudden, like all these little things weren't feeling right. All these little situations were happening, and it was like in my gut, my intuition was
Yeah.
telling me, you know, red flag, like red flag, red flag, red flag. I call them red flags when the intuition is like, like high alert, red flag. And I ignored it. I
Hmm.
ignored it. And I knew. So, for example, when I questioned his loyalty to me, and I knew in my gut that he was not being truthful, and he was not being faithful. But he talked me out of it, and I wanted to believe him, so I did. And that's one example, and there were several other things that had occurred in that relationship. And that relationship lasted for 4.5 years. For me,
Hmm.
that was way longer than it should have. But I am a very loyal person, a little bit stubborn, and I felt like if I left him, like, who what would he do? Because he couldn't keep a job. There was just so many things about him that were just like red flag, red flag, red flag. Was not
Because you
it wasn't
cared.
Yes, because I cared, but almost maybe because I don't know. The problem was I cared more about him than I did about
Then it
me,
about
was
you.
the problem.
True.
So, fast forward, I don't know what, there was a final incident that happened between him and I, sort of a final fight. And, and prior, just like a month or so prior to this, I was living with my parents. My parents just had enough. They had enough. I don't blame them. They saw right through all of it. They had enough, and they were like, Laura, you need to choose either him or us,
Oh.
because, we can't do this anymore. And at that time, I chose him. I chose him. And so, so then I moved out of my parents' house. I moved in with him, and nothing changed. It's like I felt like I gave up so much for him, thinking like, look at what I've given up. Things will maybe get better with us. Nothing changed. In fact, because I was living with him now, I saw a lot more.
Or
Yeah, that were just like red flags, red flags, red flags. So, there was a final fight. There was a final straw. I was in nursing school at the time. Thank goodness I still was doing well in nursing school despite this tumultuous relationship. And I called my sister, my savior, and I'm done with him. She's like, I'm going to get your stuff right now. So
oh,
because I was
beautiful.
actually, yes, I was actually heading over to do a clinical rotation for nursing school. So she just cleared out all my stuff for me. So I didn't have to go back and face it or be talked back in, nothing like that. So she took care of that for me. And then that was sort of it. And when I finally let go of that relationship, it was like my eyes were open for the first time. It was like I saw clearer after 4.5 years. I felt an automatic sense of empowerment,
Yeah.
like
Come more
like
centered
more centered.
and
I
aligned.
was, yes, I was coming back. I was
Mm-hmm.
coming back because for so long my focus was on him and fighting for him and listening to his lies and just being in this relationship where I never uh, stopped to think what it was that I wanted. And it was so much for
Living his
him.
life.
Yes, like just I don't know, just being there so that he can
Yeah.
make all these stupid decisions. So, anyways, so I was like, and it was amazing because as soon as I was like, what, I'm done. Um, it was like my feelings for him shut off too, like a switch. It was like it shut off, and it was almost like I was indifferent. I was indifferent about him. Thank goodness for that. It wasn't like, oh, did I make the right choice? Oh, I miss him. I'm so grateful for my team because they I feel like they really gave me the support that I needed at that time to then become indifferent. It was very much became um like I hope I don't want to know anything about him anymore. Like I don't want that anymore in my life. So anyway, it just when I finally gave into listening to that intuitive guidance, uh just life, like it was like all of a sudden like life, like you said, got recentered and I was back on track. I felt like I was back on track. But I will say that they were throwing red flags at me for years before, but because of free will, I was like, nope, not gonna listen. Nope, not gonna listen. And life just was really, whoo, luckily for me, like I said, I had nursing school. I was doing well in that. Thank goodness. Um, but the relationships with people, my friends, my family, myself, that was just going downhill. And because I just continuously ignored my intuition that said it's time to cut this off, it's time to move on, this is not good for you anymore. And but then once I did, life realigned, life totally realigned without me even knowing that it was doing that. I just
Mm-hmm.
felt good. I just felt better.
I
So
think that I think you had had enough.
mm,
And
mm,
I wouldn't say that that time was maybe too long. Most of the time, they say, you give somebody, when they start doing certain things, you really can change people. They have to
yes,
decide to change. But sometimes maybe we
absolutely.
have to go through that in order to mature. Because
Mhm.
if we get out of it early on without really getting the lessons, we might fall in the same trap. We might make the same choice
Absolutely.
out there. We might repeat that same pattern and get, and form that chain. And maybe before we even get to realize that we've gone through maybe more years than that. Or some people go through in that same relation or in one relation, even more,
Mm.
even 10 years before they be like, you know
Yes.
what, I've got to go. So you got out just when it was it was time for you to leave so you can make better decisions about yourself and, mend everything back with your loved ones and those who really cared about you. And it was great that at that time it was like you didn't have any, you've got to that point where that maturity and being
Yeah.
decisive that that's it, I've
Yes.
had enough, yes. And you were ready to move on. So that's, I think
Yes.
it was just at the right time. It was just the right
Absolutely. And
time.
I do want to add to, since my spirituality has really taken off, I can see now the purpose that he played in my life. And I
Hmm.
do send him love. I do
Sure,
send him love. I really
sure.
do want what's best for him. And I know that this was something that we decided before this life started, that he's going to come in and he's going to throw me for a loop, because of what you said, because here I am now being able to use that as a way to maybe hopefully reach others and help others, and that's
Yeah.
not in vain.
Hmm.
But yeah, I had to sort of get to that bad point, I suppose, for it to be profound enough in my life to learn from it, like you said, and to be talking about it now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And what I want to add about that is like, and it always come to the person in that relationship to make that decision themselves.
Mm. Mhm.
Everybody
Mhm.
else around you can say anything, but if you do not decide for yourself, nothing is really going to change. And
So
it's
true.
always important to see that you can force somebody to change when they're not ready or to make certain decisions when they can see for themselves. They have to be
Ugh,
able to see and to really know in their knowing that, you know what, it's time for me to go. um
absolutely.
yeah, I have that example. Like my mom, she was given at we come from a culture where people, parents could just decide and give their
Mm.
child to marriage to older people, to people who were even older than themselves, taking a little child and just giving them off
Oh
to
wow.
marriage. My mom was one of those, and she
Mhm.
decided to. She was just giving away, and her mom was so hurt that she decided to get
Mm.
out of the marriage. She ran from her home because she was like, "This is too hurtful," because she had lost her son, and
Mm.
um, my mom was almost like no, at that time she hadn't lost her son, but her son didn't have a good relationship with with the father, not because the son had done anything, just because he had so much hatred for the mother, and the kids
Mm.
have nothing to do with that.
Right.
But you're putting your anger or whatever else you did, whatever transaction you've done out there, you're using your child to pay for that. But my mom getting into that relationship, she got there, and her father's sister didn't like that. And she herself was there very sad and crying every single day.
Mm.
And uh, that aunt sent her daughter to give her some food and with a message: you need to leave because that place is not for you. But my mom didn't know how to leave because they had like somebody guiding because they felt like she was going to run away.
Oh.
Yeah. And secondly, there was also, no, one night she had a dream from her grandmother. And her
Mm.
grandmother's message was, I just want to let you know that where you are, you're by yourself.
Mm.
So that was like an eye opening. Like for real, that means
Mhm.
that everybody's saying that I'm here by myself. Like nobody's in agreement with this. So myself, I am not in agreement.
Mhm.
But she had to decide for herself, no matter what was happening
Mm.
around her. And that is how one morning they say when you make a firm decision, even the universe, things uh, just fall into place and guide you into that decision. When your spirit is one with you in that decision, that's when she decided to get out of that place, not knowing. I don't know. The person was guiding her. I don't know where she went. She got out. People were out farming, and she got out. People saw her, but it was like maybe she's just strolling. But I don't know whatever happened, but divinely she was protected, and that's how she got
Mhm.
out of there
Mm.
and started something new, and then met her husband with whom she's been for so many years. and had a happy, I think it's a very happy marriage. So
Mm,
it was just to add that when that person is ready,
yes.
it's up to them to make that decision. We just have to be there
Yep.
to support them and pray for them and know that, okay, let their eyes open and let them see, that which is for them, and that they are protected wherever they are. And I'm
Yes.
happy that you were able to get out of there. And for those of you who are still out there trying to think, those red flags are often like, it's a message,
Hmm.
but the decision, we have to make it, because we have a choice
Absolutely.
to either say yes or no. And yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. 100%.
Thank you. And one thing I
Thank
want
you.
to ask you is, I know you're
Yeah.
spreading the message of love, and we know that love is like number one for all of us in the world. And what is your message to those people out there who still feel like, uh, or what I should say is, what is love to you? And how do you think we can start with not only loving ourselves, but also spreading it around us?
Mm, such a good question. Um, so I can tell my guides are sharing this one with me to share with you and everybody else who's listening. Love is it's actually really simple. Um, it's showing a stranger kindness. It's showing somebody who's having a bad day kindness, giving them your time and your attention. It's throwing somebody a smile. It's letting somebody know who may be having a hard day that they're there if they need to talk. It's creating these uh, moments of connectedness with other human beings, um, and simple, just simple. Like for example, if you're at the grocery store and you are, the cashier is, you know, ringing up your order and they just showing them kindness. They ask, oh, how's your day been? It's been great. How's yours? Just simple things like that. Just not blowing people off, or I feel like the biggest one is road rage, not having road rage, but really uh, realizing how connected we all are energetically. But even if people can't even understand that, just understanding how connected we are. Like when somebody is nice to you at the grocery store, I keep saying the grocery store, but if somebody is nice to you,
Okay.
a stranger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it puts you in a good mood, and then you come home and you share your good mood with your family because you're just feeling really good by that. And you just look at your kids and you're like, I love you, I've just had a really good day and I really love you. And then it puts them in a good mood, and then they hang out with their friends and they're really happy, and there makes their friends happy, who then go home to their parents. And so you see how we're so connected on so many different levels. So it's just the simple thing of just being kind to other people. Now, we are human, right? So we do have bad days. That's okay. It's okay to have bad days, but try and remember just the simple, a smile, saying hi. That's it. That's as simple as it is. For me, my mission is that, but also just to help people be reminded of how much love they have, especially during these times of being isolated at home and things like that. Many people may be feeling very lonely, feeling very alone, and they really miss the connection with other people. Now's a really good time to remind everybody of how loved they are by their teams from the other side, and that they really aren't alone, and that they have this abundance of love and guidance just waiting for them to ask them a question, or ask them to come into their space, or just to be a part of their day. So it's so simple. It does not have to be anything hard. It does not have to be you meditate for 3 hours and you're connected. It's just a simple thought of, guides, come close to me, I need you. Just invite them. You just have to invite them. So, for me, part of me sharing, spreading that word of love is reminding people of their teams, reminding them that they have their spirit guides, helping to be that sort of interpreter and voice between their teams and them, while also hopefully in the process teaching them how they can do it themselves by really learning what their intuition is and how to hone in on that, so that they can then build their own communication with their teams. They don't need somebody like me to do it. So that's it. It's as simple as that. As simple as that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you have to share about your book, your new book? I want us to
Oh
talk.
yeah.
Yes. And once again,
Oh,
congratulations. What
oh,
is it
thank
about? Can you give
you.
us a little,
Yeah,
gist?
gosh, I feel like I love it. I feel like this whole podcast just gave a huge, it's like really, like everything that I've talked about is in it. Yes, it's so okay. So I am super excited. Now it's not yet published. It's still
Hmm.
sort of in the editing phases, but it's
Okay.
written. It's written, so that's good.
Beautiful.
But yes, all right, that's the big step. Write it. So it's
Hmm.
written. And but yes, I'm looking to publish uh sometime this year. So I'll definitely let you know when that happens, because I'll be too excited not to share.
Yeah.
But it's yes, but it's basically about it's a talking about intuition. It talks about ego. And ego, just to give a brief description, is the part of us that says, oh gosh, that's too scary, I don't know if I want to do that. So that's sort of the ego. And then the intuition is like, okay, you need to do this. Ego says, oh, I don't know. So I talk about intuition, I talk about ego, and I talk about our teams. And I talk about these things with stories from my own life to sort of showcase what that looks like. So I do talk about that relationship that I have in a bit more detail. Um, I do talk about the dream visitations with my grandmother, with my guides, with Jesus, with some others like a family dog. That one was really neat. But I do talk about some of these other things. And I do bring up other things as well, that may be useful for somebody who is new on their spiritual journey. So I do talk about divination tools such as pendulums and tarot or oracle cards, and how I came about to use them, sort of my thoughts on them before they were very taboo to me. I was like, oh my gosh, only like witches or evil people use this. I mean, I'm not saying witches are evil at all. I consider myself kind of like that, but anyway. So there was a taboo, a stigma around them that prevented me from even wanting to like bring one into my house. So
Hmm.
ridiculous now that I think about it. But and now I have like a whole like a nightstand full. But just talking about my experience with that, and then also explaining how to use that, how to use them, for somebody who's new in their journey. So it's just really, I feel like um, a lot of what I spoke about here as well. And how I came about to write that book is also very interesting, because it's a great intuition story.
Okay.
But I went and I visited a psychic for the first time, and this was when I wanted to learn how to hone in on my own intuition. And she told me to start meditating, and then she also said, start keeping journals, because I see you writing a book. I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. I took note of that, and that was it. And then I had another dear friend who was like, are you keeping journals? Because I can see you writing a book. I said, okay, that's person number
Number
two. I
two.
think it's time to listen, right? It's time to listen. And so at that after I got off the phone with that one friend who told me she sees me writing a book. I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write a book. And as soon as I said that, it was like the motivation to do it. I couldn't
Right.
wait to start. It was amazing, because before then, it was just kind of like a thought, like, oh, okay, one person said it, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to do, but whatever. And then as soon as I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it, I couldn't wait to get started. It was the
Wow.
strangest transition. Very cool. Yeah, so totally knew at that point, okay, I was meant to do it. And obviously I was, because here I am today with it written and waiting to take the next step. So yes, so that's essentially what the book is about.
I love that. I love that.
Thank
And
you.
I can't wait. Make sure you tag me.
Absolutely.
So where can the audience find you, Laura?
Oh yes, gosh, I'm on Facebook, Instagram. They can find me on LinkedIn if they want to, but that's kind of right now got more of my nursing stuff on there. I'm also on Goodreads. I've created an author account on there. There's not much activity yet because I'm still working on publishing my first book, but I'm on Goodreads. I have a website, www.laurawest.net, where you can read up a little bit more about me and maybe some of the services that I do offer. But I love doing live readings on social media, so Facebook, Instagram. I am on Twitter as well. Yeah, gosh, I feel like I'm in a lot of places, so you can find me one way or another.
Beautiful. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
giving people options. That's how we're
Yes,
gonna look at it. Options. They have options.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Hmm. So it's really been a great time with you, Laura. I appreciate you sharing from your heart and just, letting it out. And, you have a wonderful path and really being here and bringing it out I know is going to inspire so many people. I enjoyed this conversation.
Me
Um,
too.
and to the audience, I just want to say I'm going to have Laura's information at the description box of this episode. So make sure you check on there if you want to get in contact with her or want to know more about Laura. She just talked about some of those, but if you want straight, you click the link and get to her directly. So it's been a great time. Thanks again, Laura. Thanks everybody for listening. Keep growing, and I would say keep being great. Keep
Thank you
discovering
so
yourself.
much.
Yes. Thank
Thank
you.
you.